Today's problem, I'm starting to get a little bit bored with my reef tank. What's next? We got the top 20 solutions to that problem.
Starting with number one, and that is to start a collection or garden of your favorite corals that excite you. So, if you've had your eye on 4 or 5 different strains of zoas, why not put them all into one single tank? There's so many different types of morphs and colors and types of corals that you can group them into species-specific tanks. A lot of times, it doesn't even take a whole lot of space or a big giant tank to do.
Now, probably the most common ones are a zoanthid garden, and what people call an SPS tank is actually a acro garden in many cases. What you get to see then is all the little different color morphs and subtleties between all of the different corals that come from that same group. So, you think of a Goniopora, and you didn't really realize, man, that there's like 60, maybe 100 different color variations of this thing. And once you start to collect them and put them next to each other, it really starts to pop out how different they are. You know this when you see it with something as drastic as like a zoanthid, but this can be done with Gonioporas, Elviopora, it can be done with clams, it can be done with acros, it can be done with mushrooms, it can be done with any coral that speaks to you. And the best part about it is now you've actually created an environment that's perfect for that organism.
So a lot of times a mixed tank is the hardest or one of the hardest tanks to keep, because you have SPS with LPS with softies, and you're trying to create that perfect environment for all of them. When I have a species specific tank or a coral specific tank, I already know what keeps those corals happy and healthy, and the best part is all the rest of them are happy and healthy in the same environment.
If I had to wave a magic wand, my prediction wand, I would say in the future, species-specific tanks, which is a garden that features all kinds of the same coral, all the different color variations of the thing that you love the most, is going to be one of the most popular second or third tanks out there, and a really cool way to explore it. And like what you just mentioned, can be done in a smaller tank, which is a little bit cheaper, and can be done with smaller frags, and really feature it in a way you can look close up. All right, number 2, try a new type of animal that you love. Again, we're honing it down here. We're going from a big, broad mixed tank down to something a little bit more finite that you may have missed before.
Go after those fish that you've always dreamed about, but maybe you hadn't had the right environment for, that you can make an environment specific for them. Pipefish, seahorses, there's eels and clams and bivalves and all these really unique creatures out there that might have caught your eye before, but then you read the description for care, and that just didn't fit your current tank. Set up another tank or set up an extra tank and explore the hobby in species specific.
Yeah, there's so many things out there. I might repeat a couple that you just said, but the seahorses, the anglers, the lionfish. Even if you can't have a big old lionfish, you can have a little fuzzy dwarf lionfish. You can have eels. They even come in smaller and big sizes. You can do all kinds of things. Even the corals. Like if you've never tried a Goniopora before, you might be really excited about how that type of animal behaves in your tank. So think about picking out either a fish or a coral or a clam, anything you might have never done before, and create a tank wrapped around something brand new.
Number 3, start a display refugium. This is something I personally did. I got tired of sitting there looking at my 125, and I decided, I really want some algae. I really want to display it, maybe even put some seahorses in there. So I just plumbed a little 20 long tank into the back of my existing tank, and then I put macroalgae in there. I had blue octodes, all different colors of gracilis, and different types of things that don't really do well in a refugium on its own when it's surrounded by chaeto, but something that's really, really cool to look at, and the variety of creatures that come with that environment.
Yeah, I think number 1, mangroves.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you haven't done a mangrove tank before, this can actually be just an extension of the existing tank you have. Plumb it on in. It can also be a desktop tank. You had a mangrove tank on your desk for quite a while. Just a handful of cool little fish, a sand bed, and some mangroves gives like the benefit of having like plants in your or in your office, as well as bringing some of the hobby in there without the sump and all the other garbage. Just a really, really easy way to experience saltwater aquariums in a way that you haven't before. Number 4, try a new location for a tank. Half of you have more than one tank, and actually about 1 in 8 of you have up to 5 tanks. But you can put them in different areas. You might have a big, large display tank in a basement or some other area of your home that can support the weight. But there's other areas where you can bring something kind of cool and unique into it, where you spend a lot of time, maybe even more time than where your display is, and bring the hobby home. I think of kitchens, I think of bedrooms, I think of children's rooms. But the one that really hits home for me is the office tank. Whether it's a home office you spend a lot of time in, or if it's an actual office, because a lot of tanks, man, you may see only for an hour or so at night, while you're spending time in that family room. But in your office, you may spend 8-9 hours a day, and you get to enjoy it all day. I mean, I think there might not be a single higher ROI, meaning like return on investment of like how much joy the tank gives me, peace and tranquility, and how much I enjoy the animals when I get to see it for 8 hours a day. So office tank probably number 1.
Yeah, I would say, in the spirit of having an office tank, again, these things can be really, really small, really easy to maintain. Maybe I have like a small little 10-gallon tank, and because I have my tank at home, one day a week I bring a little 5-gallon bucket of water to the office, I change out my water, and I just get to sit there and enjoy my tank all day. Bathroom tanks, if you want to. The bedroom tank is, if you were going to do a bedroom tank, I'd probably recommend an all-in-one system, just because of how quiet an all-in-one can be. When you start to mess with sumps and things like that, it could be a little bit noisy. So in a quiet area, but again, I've had them in my basement, I've had them in my living room, I've had a kitchen one, and the office. I agree with you. I spend a lot of time here in the office. It's just nice to sit there with a companion next to my computer while I'm typing.
So yeah, set up a new tank somewhere else in a different location and explore the hobby in a different way, especially if you can do one of those species tanks.
Number 5, make a to-do list of your own. We all have projects that we've been pushing off for maybe months, maybe years, that we haven't really tackled yet. So make a top 10 list of things that you would like to solve with your tank. Maybe pH has been a struggling problem for you and your tank. So now you actually want to take some time to implement some gear or whatever it takes to bring that pH up. Focus more on it. There's other things like make a list of clean out your refugium. Maybe your return pumps or skimmer pumps haven't been cleaned forever. Deep cleaning is always a good task to take up. Automating your equipment or rerouting or changing your mixing station. There's all these little tiny projects that you can put together to better your life and better your reefing hobby, make it a little easier, but also like spark that creativity and passion for the hobby.
It is a hobby. That's an important word. So that kind of means we should be progressing along, being able to, for a lot of people, just set it up. You could look at it and call it a day, and that's great. For a lot of other people, though, like, I want to find progress. I want to learn more. I want to apply that knowledge. I want to do something new and master this thing, right? Some of that could be setting up a new tank. Some of that could be, though, automating it. It could be making water changes easier, setting up a new mixing station. It could be mastering an aquascape. It could be all these different things. So look at your tank and say, what are the 10 things that I'm most disappointed by, and solve. Number 6, trailblaze, meaning do something fairly rare that either is never done before or at least rarely done before. I think of a pico. Maybe you want to do a tiny little tank, a little 6-inch cube, plumb to a 20-gallon tank. Maybe you want to do cuttlefish, octopus. Think about different things that are actually challenging. Learn how to do them, add new information out there, and take part of the community.
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest ones about being a trailblazer and invigorating your passion for the hobby is go on the forums, go on the Facebook groups, go on Instagrams, and there's always some new concepts, new ideas being challenged in the hobby. Do you and your hobby friends a favor by being one of the ones to try it out for the first time. Maybe don't try it out on your main display, but set up something new to try something new and see if you can't add to the pool of information.
The part about the display, I think, is a really good point. Most people don't want to trailblaze on their primary display because the nature of trailblazing is there's a lot of failure to figure out the right path. But if you can be part of the new thought processes, is like, a cuttlefish is really hard. Well, it's not that it just like miraculously is hard. It's something about its habitat, something about water quality or chemistry, something about it, or the amount of effort that you need to do every day to take care of it. So figure out what those things are. Start trailblazing by thinking, what are the problems and how do I solve? And then how do I share that with the rest of the community?
Number 7, try an aggressive or predator-only tank, or even just a fowler tank. There's a lot of fish out there that I know have caught my eye. I just couldn't keep them because I had the reef tank, and I'm worried about my inverts, I'm worried about my corals, I'm worried about fish-on-fish violence and aggression, and these aggressive fish eating my docile fish. But if I had a tank just dedicated to those types of fish, I can enjoy that part of the hobby as well.
It's funny because a lot of times people think of it as I started with a fish-only tank and I worked my way up to reef tank. But in reality, I think a lot of us started with a reef tank and just kind of skipped the whole saltwater aquarium piece.
Yeah.
So it's actually another way to add another tank, explore different animals in a totally different way, and not add a increasing amount of work, or at least not double the amount of work.
Yep.
Meaning taking care of a tank that just has eels in it, or just has angelfish in it, or triggers, or any of those things in it, isn't as hard as a reef tank, meaning that, again, it might fit my office lifestyle, it might fit a new second living room tank, it might fit something different. And I'll just say it, like, you get to engage with those animals, especially some of the bigger ones, the pufferfish and all those things, in a different way than you do in a small reef tank. It's just another extension of the entire hobby.
It's probably less expensive too. In fowler tanks or some of these fish-only tanks don't need or don't require as much gear because you're not trying to keep the corals alive, and the dosing and the gear that goes into that process. These fish-only tanks are basically the cost of rock, water, sand, and the cost of your fish.
Another reason they stay cleaner during between maintenance, because you only turn the lights on when you need to. Most of them, these fish don't actually need light on all the time. And so you can turn the lights on just when you're home at night, and it won't grow as much algae, A, from the photo period, B, from the intensity. Number 8, join an inspirational community or follow some hashtags. It's other people's success, and emulating that often is what really gets the creative juices flowing, at least for those of us that sometimes need a little help. You see what other people have done, and you're like, you know what? Wouldn't that be cool to go do as well?
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook groups, even the reefing forums. There's very specific forums, very specific Facebook groups out there, very specific Instagram hashtags that are, just the kind of things that we were talking about, species specific, coral specific, trailblazing, all these different cool avenues that you can just follow and get some inspiration.
In fact, if you have a hashtag that you follow or a community that you really like, share it in the comments for everybody else so they can follow it as well.
Number 9, it's time to trick out your tank and add some bling, make it clean, presentable. I've gone back to my tanks many times because the wires and the cords, and it looks just like a rat's nest. But I'll tell you what, there's something satisfying. There's something, be proud of when you have all of your gear laid out nice and neat, mounted on some nice and neat boards, cords are tucked away, and clean is synonymous with safe.
It's true, the clean and safe part. But also, man, form matches function. Meaning, I don't just have a bunch of cool gear and a cool aquarium. It all looks neat and well put together. So the adaptive reef board's probably the most popular option out there. You can get just the generic deluxe boards for power bars and everything. But they also have LED lit versions for Ecotech and Neptune. They have little spots. They're all pre-drilled for everything, and you can install it exactly the way you want. So not only does it look really safe and organized, but it looks cool as well. All right, number 10, certify yourself as a fish vet, meaning learn everything there is to learn about fish disease, quarantine before the hand, treating after, and figuring out how to do all this, because it's actually not just the bit about I can see ick on it, I can see velvet. It's how does it actually behave before that, where I can recognize the signs and treat for it before those end stages. This is probably the part that like you can be the most proud of, where I really figured out how this animal's general health is and how I can, preempt anything that might go wrong, and then teach it to other people as well so they're happier and healthier with their pets.
Yeah, this also goes towards corals too. So it doesn't have to be just a fish vet. You could be a coral vet too. Be smart about dipping corals. Maybe frag some of your corals, try some different dips. But learn everything there is to learn about coral dipping. The fish piece I really like myself because I can practice being a fish vet by going into stores that have these not so good looking fish, but choosing them specifically so I can gain more knowledge and try to get them into better health myself.
I think of the coral thing. I missed that actually, which is like for me, if I was going to do a Euphilia garden, I would dip more aggressively for brown jelly disease to make sure that it doesn't spread to all of them, because these guys are expensive. And so when I'm buying all those little frags, I don't want one of them to actually wipe out the others. I think you can say that about a lot of different types of corals. So yeah, understand what it means to dip and take care of these animals, how to quarantine beforehand, how to treat afterward. This is definitely an evolution of the hobby.
Number 11, open up your artistic and creative side and try one of these HNSA aquascapes or these NSA aquascapes and spend a couple weeks, maybe even a month building, breaking, re-putting back together, but see what kind of aquascape that you can build that you can be proud of. You put your own time and effort and blood and sweat and the tears into, that when you put it into your next tank, you're like, oh man, that was really cool. I'll do it again.
It's like sculpture building is really what it is. It is just an artistic itch. And in fact, I could do this as a hobby its own and never even set up a single tank, not actually use them, because it's just so much fun to take something and remold it into something else. And if you're not specifically good at doing that kind of thing, but you still want the same type of result, well, you can handicap it a little bit by using those arches and trees and all the things that come from carob sea. In fact, I saw on a previous video that somebody said, you know what, I had somebody come in and install an aquascape for me. They just brought in tons of those archways from carob sea, and I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out, but man, was it awesome. So yeah, if you're not really good at this, then you can use some of the tools that already exist out there. But if you really want to create something that nobody else on the entire planet will have, then get a hammer, get a chisel, break up the rock, and then reassemble it into something really powerful. Number 12, automate it. This hits the inner gear junkie, which means that if you like shopping for stuff, you like installing the stuff, you like setting it up as much as you like anything else, automating it gives you an excuse, because you can actually make most of your life easier. You can do auto water changes. You can actually set up a water change system. You can do all kinds of different things, man, that make other elements of reefing easier than they were before, even automating just avoiding disasters as well.
Yeah, this one really speaks to me personally, because I'm a gear junkie, and I love the fact that I can push buttons and have this happen and this happen and this happen and this happen. So automating was a big part of the hobby to me, as far as entertaining and fun, as I can show off what I did. I'll be like, hey guys, watch how I push this button, and the lights change, and then the flow changes, and this does. But there's a lot to automation, and probably the best part, the unforeseen enjoyment of the automation, was that I have protection for my tank. It was great to set up all this stuff and program alarms and sirens and lights and things like that. But the best part is when the time comes for me to depend on that, or my tank to depend on those alarms and monitors, it's in place, and I had a great time doing it.
Yeah, really, I guess, trick out your aquarium controller, right?
Yeah.
You go out there and think everything that could happen to a protein skimmer, well, let's automate all those failures so nothing could ever possibly happen. Yeah. Return pump, lights, everything, leaks. But even better than that, automating water changes. So when I would, do automated water change, you could have it via the dose that sends water back and forth and truly automated. Then there's also parts that just simply make it easier. I mean, if I was going to do a manual one now, I go flip one single switch and it turns off my return pumps, turns off my skimmer, but also turns off the skimmer for an extra 15 minutes after the return pumps come back on so it doesn't overflow, turns off the power heads, turns off the lights, turns off everything related to that power head, and then turns them back on in sequence in a way that doesn't cause any problems in the tank. So as soon as the water changes over, flip the switch back up, the whole thing comes back to life and I don't have to worry about any of it. So yeah, automate it, one of the cooler ways to find ways to just continually invest into the hobby and tank.
Number 13, ditch that these are your pets and actually start farming some of them, in which case, start a frag tank or even go as big as like an aqua farm. This was, again, another extension of the hobby for me that happened rather quickly. I was growing corals, they were coming fast, I needed a place for them. And I always needed an excuse to set up one or two more tanks. So, setting up a frag system, they have some different needs than your actual display tank. So there can be a whole nother avenue of the hobby for you. Can actually get plumbed into your existing display, or you could just make some satellite tanks.
I mean, what happens when you go to the Xenia area of your tank and it's just overfull and you need to remove it? How do I get it onto frag plugs? How do I get it to my fish store? How do I trade it with somebody? So there's a couple of different pieces of this. So setting up the frag tank obviously fills the need of what do I do with all these corals when they're overgrown. Yeah. But it also kind of gives me that thing of like, all right, well, I was growing it in my tank successfully, but how do I get these things to be fruitful and multiply inside of an actual glass box that's smaller than this for that purpose? I learned something about that process. How do I get it to happen on frag plugs instead of an actual aquarium? And then can I trade them with the fish store, with my friends, with even eBay? How can I get those things on there so I can reduce the overall cost of this hobby because I'm so good at it that I've expanded to farming? Number 14, up your feeding game. That can be a lot of different things. It could be starting with just researching what your pets actually eat in the wild. It is not a generic one-size-fits-all answer. Some of these things eat other fish. Some of these things eat algae. If you go watch a tang in the wild, I've never seen it chase down a snail in my life or any type of meaty substance. Most of the time, it's just pecking at the rocks all day long. Anthias, the same way. I've never seen most anthias eating algae off of a rock, but I do see them eating little microfauna all day long, especially swarms of them in the mornings and evenings. So if you can see these different things in the wild, research them, and then decide how can I best feed these animals the type of food that they would get in the wild in the same frequency, you'll have better success at home. You'll feel proud of what you do. But you can also do things like DIY foods, like it's not just a freshwater shrimp that I'm going to feed forever. Now I can go find, fish eggs. I can find all kinds of different sources, chop it up. You can see DIY reef chili. We did a whole video on how to do it. Speaking of trailblazing though, we've been discussing what we're calling the layer cake here, which is, when I mix it all together, I don't actually get the right, ratio of a lot of things. Right. Yeah. So what if I did, a layer of mysis, a layer of fish eggs, a layer of nori? Like I could put 8 sheets of nori on both sides. So when I cut up into cubes, I know that I'm getting a big, chunk of nori. In fact, I know exactly the ratio because I layered it in that ratio. So somebody else should actually go do this. We've been waiting to do it. But Trailblaze, Link knew about nutrition, evolved the way the entire hobby does it because we'll come right along with you.
Number 15, go ahead and solve those dead spots in your tank. As we all see a spot in our tanks that's probably collects a lot of detritus. The sand gets pretty brown right there. The corals aren't really doing that great in that spot. In which case, you can identify these dead spots or stale spots of flow, and you can actively go try to solve it. If maybe you have a pump, or maybe you're in need of a pump that can point straight down. So pick yourself up a little Tunes pump and point that pump in the direction that you need to get rid of that dead spot. But we can always improve upon the foxhole or improve upon the tank that we have. Flow is a great area where all of us can improve.
Yeah, and like you said, man, you will know that you have achieved the goal when you've solved the dead spots because all the things that you just went looking for don't exist anymore. We won't find cyano all over the sand. We won't find detritus pools all over the sand. When you disturb the sands, clouds of brown crud won't come out anymore. You won't see low areas or areas within the tank where the corals are dying, where the innards of the coral actually, like the tips and everything are fine, but the inside of of it is dying, or where, you know, you can actually spot it. The corals in this area just don't grow very fast. It's almost certainly related to flow, because light is usually penetrated over the light pretty well. We've all mastered that. Flow the next stage here, so go look for those dead spots and solve. Number 16, find that next MACNA or RAP and go. RAP, I mean Reefapalooza. You will really, really enjoy it. Totally worth it. Bring the family.
Yeah, this is, if you've never gone to one of these things, they're popping up. There's more and more of them. I think there's like 6 or 7 different shows all around the country, probably pretty close to your local area if you just check it out. There's some rotating shows. Those MACNAs and RAPs, great place to meet other hobbyists and, you know, learn. Maybe you talk to a trailblazer and you decide you want to try this type of same thing. This is another place where you can get some of those species-specific corals that you don't really see in your, you know, normal LFSs or your fellow hobbyists around the area. Maybe if you can't make it to some of the big shows like a MACNA or a Reefapalooza, there's a lot of local shows. Maybe you have to drive more than an hour or 2 from your area. But make a day of it. Go to a local frag swap and you know, talk to the local hobbyists there.
Yeah, if you go to MACNA, what you'll get to see is generally that's where most of the vendors will go, the manufacturers of the world.
Gear.
You go get to talk to the guy who actually made the pump, right? You'll get to go tell him what you think. Make it better, make it worse, make it, I've just never been so happy about a pump in my whole life. But you also get to see the speakers there. So there's generally days and days of all of the thought leaders there giving speeches on, you know, whatever it is they've learned in the last year. And on top of that, you'll find a few different coral providers as well. Reefapalooza, on the other hand, and you're going to see a sea of coral. If you will never, ever in your lifetime see this many corals all in one place. Think of it like a playing card trade show, right? Like every single playing card, Comic-Con, everything known to man will be there. So if you really care about the corals and the animals, man, nowhere else will you see this many variations. All those things that you've seen people talking about on the forums, the Walt Disney's, all those things, you get to see now actually in person, see what people are really talking about, nowhere else. And here's a little hint. The last day of the show, they're always the cheapest.
Number 17, perfect your controller regardless of what aquarium controller you're using. There's probably an accessory or probably some functionality out there that you're not tapped into or you haven't got yet. Now, this is the opportunity to go ahead and get some leak sensors. This is your opportunity to, you know, get some of those sensors and switches and different types of things that you know existed, didn't really know how to use or set up yet. But if you want to invigorate your passion in the hobby and your excitement for the hobby, try out some of these new pieces of gear. You're making your tank better and safer, but at the same time, you're tickling that gear itch.
You know what? There's 2 series specifically, or videos that if you're interested in getting the most out of your controller, this is a never-ending path, man. You can just keep refining it, making it better and better and better. We have a top 20 fails of not getting the most out of your controller that I would definitely watch. But also, Randy did a series. You can go find it in the series portion or playlist of the Bulk Reef Supply or the BRStv channel page. But there is a Neptune Apex series where it specifically targets pieces of gear. So here's your protein skimmer. Here's everything that we know about protein skimmers and how to apply that knowledge to save your tank from a failure, make it work better. And you might have just thought a protein skimmer was plug and play, but you're totally wrong. It's not. There's so many things that you can do with it once you decide that you want to control it better, more intelligently, rather than just plug it in. So whole entire series on basically everything from return pumps to dosing pumps to chemistry to water changes, all using the Apex to make the tank more intelligent and better. Number 18, challenge or confirm a BRStv investigates. We do all kinds of experiments here. A lot of them can actually be done at home. So put that stuff to the test and you can find out how it actually applies to your tank. For instance, I think of the white bucket test, meaning fill up one 5-gallon pail with fresh seawater and another one from your tank, and you'll probably throw up with how yellow that thing really is. And just a couple bucks in carbon can actually turn the entire tank so it looks exactly like the fresh one. Why wouldn't you do that once you know?
Yeah, there's over 150, almost 200 investigates that we've done. Pick one out, try it out for yourself at home. Skimmer tests come to mind. Calcium and alkalinity tests come to mind with test kits and pH boost. There's a ton of videos out there that you can confirm, or you can challenge us and we'd have to come back and test it.
I think of another one, the skimmer test. So meaning if I adjust the amount of air, does the performance go up? If I pull out the filter socks, does the skimmer performance go up? If I change out my filter socks every week, does it change how much nitrate ends up in my tank than if I pulled them out entirely, or if I change them out every 3 days or even once a month? These are things that you could do at home. You can document, you can put it into your favorite app, or even inside the Apex, you can put the little notes in there. It might seem like, I don't really want to run a 3-month test, but it isn't that isn't that difficult to make one tweak, note it again in a month, and then someday share the results with the community, because collectively, when we all share all this information, it's where we hone in on the best possible solutions.
Number 19, become a videographer or a photographer of your tank. Everybody loves coral pictures. Everybody loves fish pictures. So, brush up on your photo taking skills. There's clips, all kinds of ice cap and polyp lab, clips for the back of your camera. You can adjust filters. You can adjust your light to try to take a better picture of a coral. Use little zoomy things like Flipper has a magnetic, magnifying glass that you stick to the side of your tank. You can shoot pictures through there. Photography and getting your 35 millimeter out, but there's all different types of ways to play with photography, share, some really cool shots with the community, and who knows, you might end up on like photo of the day on some photos or on some forums or whatnot.
So, I think one of the ways that we enjoy our tanks the most is when we share it with others. In today's digital age, sharing this stuff on Instagram, on Facebook, doesn't matter if you're a part of a club like Ask BRS or Ask BRS on Facebook, or just on Instagram, sharing it with your own friends and family. I don't know anybody who doesn't like seeing this stuff. It's beautiful, it's powerful, and it's just colorful. Number 20, dream big. It might just be time to take the leap. You've maxed out your 40 breeder, you've maxed out your 120. The thing is just filled from end to end. There's nowhere else to take this hobby other than upwards. And when you get bigger, whole new organisms, especially fish, are open to you. So it might be, if you're bored with the hobby, you need to take the next step and get to something bigger, which opens up the box.
Yeah, there's, we've all been through this already. This is obviously not your first tank. If you're bored with it, in which case, this is something that I can curate more, more closely than maybe my first tank. My first tank, I was like, hey, I need flow, I need a return pump, I need this, I need heaters. Just kind of getting the thing up and running. And now, now that I've gotten past that and my tank's thriving, I'm ready for the next big giant tank. Maybe I actually take my time to plan this out. Maybe I build my own stand and it takes a couple months. Maybe I slowly piece together, find that right tank, get the right lights, get them on sale when I want to. But this could be a project that you take multiple months or maybe even a year to plan out and get prepared, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah, I think of a lot of people who, like, when you say dream big, dreaming is part of the fun. It isn't necessarily just go buy it all and have fun. It is, think about it like a lot of people will get like 3D CAD software and they will start to build out the entire system. If I'm going to go big, I want to get it right the first time. They'll draw out all the plumbing. They'll drill little holes in the glass through the CAD software. They'll do the whole thing and make it like something I can render and see in a 3D model. Like, that is part of the fun. Dreaming is sometimes just as fun as doing. So you know what? Dream big and then implement. Boredom solved, but next week. My tank is ugly. The ugly stage is just not going very well. How do we fix it? Hit that subscribe. You can see it next week. And the entire problem solvers right here, including that one about protein skimmers.